Well, say gone. Here I am again, big house, and here's a little story about myself again. Well, it seems years have gone by. I'm in my early 60s, and I find myself delivering disaster relief equipment for the federal government and a company out of Indiana. So, whenever there's icing, tornadoes, hurricane, flooding, whatever, our crew would bring in the heavy equipment to repair the Highline electric lines. So I'm in just outside of New York City delivering a truck, actually in Long Island, and I see there's nothing on the board that interests me on the East Coast, and I don't want to sit in Long Island or in New York City for days on end waiting for something to come up. Well, this one job just above Bangor, Maine, about 60 miles above Bangor, Maine, out in the middle of absolutely nowhere. It seems to be that there is a double scissor lift, 120-foot scissor lift up there that needs to be moved down to the yard in Lowell, Massachusetts, down above Boston. I'm way the heck down in New York City, and it's like a 7-hour miserable drive in the rain to get up there and get it, but it's been refused by about 4 different drivers for whatever reason, and I'm crazy or tough enough to go up there and get it. So I drive the 7 hours up, and it just happens that I had a friend in Boston that wanted to ride along to see what delivering heavy equipment was all about. So I pick him up in Boston, and we head up to Bangor, Maine. We drive forever, I mean forever, to get up there to get this truck. Well, one thing led to another, and after a breakdown or two, which delayed us a day, we finally, and other troubles, we finally get all the way up there to Bangor, Maine, the 7 hours. One thing and another, and it just everything was going wrong. It's one of those days where the faster you go, the slower you get there. Well, anyway, we get all the way up there, and it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, and there's nobody on the road. Now, this is up in the wilderness of Maine, and they had a problem with ice storm came through and whatever destroyed the high lines, and this truck was there left over. It was like early spring. This truck was left over. It's been sitting there forever. Everybody came up and refused it, and I says, I'm taking this truck. Well, anyway, we got in the truck in the parking lot and tried to fire it up and realized there was no clutch in it. Somebody, because these trucks are huge, now this is a 10-wheel truck. It's called a full screw because all 8 tires in the back drive and the 2 front tires steer. It's a monster. And if you're not careful with a standard transmission, you will spin the clutch or smoke the clutch off from this truck. Somebody had done that till there wasn't anything to speak of as a clutch. So this truck has a neutral safety switch. Well, anyway, we can't get the truck started because there's no clutch to put it into gear. So finally the guy that's with me, he laughs and he says, man, all this trouble we've had coming all the way up here to get this truck, and now there's no clutch in it. There's no way to get it to Lowell, Mass. Let's give up. And from somewhere deep inside me, from my mother being a tenacious wildcat, she had the saying, wait a minute, I'm not done fighting yet. Things may look bad, but I'm not done fighting. That came out of me from somewhere I don't know in her voice, scared the heck out of me. I stopped him, looked at him, and says, it may look bad, but we're not done fighting yet. So, crazy as it was and all the stuff I'd been through to get there, you have to realize that moving this heavy equipment, you are only paid when you're moving the equipment. You're not paid for the deadhead miles that you spent getting all the way up there. And I'm not losing the couple $1,000s it took to deliver this truck plus the expenses of getting all the way up there, wear and tear and everything else on not moving this truck. So I'm going to move it as far as I can, so at least I got a hold of it, and then I can call in and claim that the clutch gave out at the last minute or something happened. Anyway, I'm not giving up that easy. So you have to understand there's a neutral safety switch on this truck. So if the clutch is not depressed, you cannot start this truck, nor can you shift it. So I took a little pair of vice grips, or locking pliers, I guess you'd call them. We call them vice grips. And I clipped the switch under the dash that says the clutch is depressed. Then this has got about a 22-speed transmission in it, high and low, and low granny for rough terrain. So I put it in about fourth gear and just turned the key over. Now the truck thought that the clutch was already depressed. It wasn't. I'm in like fourth gear. And I turned the truck over and it jumped almost straight up in the air, but it started. And it started rolling because it's in fourth gear. There's no clutch. So I'm running it across the parking lot. We throw our seatbelt on and down the road we go. Well, over time, I had learned to shift these manual transmissions without using the clutch anyway. So unless you come to a complete stop, you don't have to use the clutch. You can shift at about 1800 RPMs going up. And it's just a matter at the last second when the motor's just at the right RPM and it feels right, you let off on the gas and you shift that thing into the next gear and it will fall right into the next gear without crunching, grinding, or anything else. On a downshift, you let off on the clutch just enough, and when it hits the right RPM, at just a split second, it'll hit the right RPM and you rev the motor up on a downshift just a hair to match that transmission up, and you can shift it. It'll fall right into the next lower gear. So as long as you don't stop, you don't need to use the clutch. So down the road we came, and except for running into the toll booth, which I had to stop, so I would stall the truck or put it in neutral and shut it off, or pay the toll and shut it off, start in fourth gear again and just start off again. And we only had about 5 of those toll booths. Down the road we came. Well, it took us a day to get that 6 hours back, 5 or 6 hours back to Boston. But we pulled it in the yard, and we waited until it was like about 11 o'clock at night, so we knew nobody was there. And they have a place to stage these trucks. Well, anyway, in that business, you're also charged for the damage on the vehicle. So we waited till 11 o'clock, dropped the truck off in the staging area, and then down the road we came. Well, 8 o'clock came, the dispatcher called and said, man, we got a complaint about that truck that you dropped off. You burnt the clutch out of it. And I says, no, the clutch was very weak when I got it, but we got it delivered. So we schmoozed our way over that one and on down the road. Now there's 2 different sayings that have lived with me, have followed me all over the daggum place. One of them is, I'm not done fighting yet. You have to dig when things go to hell and you total crap. You have to take a deep breath, give yourself a chance to think about it, and then come up with a saying, I'm not done fighting yet.